Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia. We have our business and economic forum tonight, and we're going to be discussing Liberia Diaspora investments. Okay, we already see some key figures on the board. All right, so we have Mr. Alex Chuchu Johnson, or Jones, sorry. Alex, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Thank you, Josie.
Mr. Johnson, how you doing, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I was here, I'm not part of the first family, so.
You're on your way.
Okay. All right. It was nice to be here.
We also have us for the first time on the Business and Economic Forum, Mr. William King.
Hello, thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Alex. Very happy to join you guys from Los Angeles, sunny California. I'm a Liberian guy, and definitely with a great passion for all things Liberia. No matter how much I cry about what's going on over there, I still find my way to send something back home. So just happy to be here, joining, and looking forward to a brighter future.
We are very glad to have you.
Thank you.
Liberia is the only country we have, and we must do our best to make it that sweet land of liberty.
I agree. Yeah. Our accent is unique.
Right. One guy said that's our dual citizenship. So tonight our topic is Liberia development, the Liberia diaspora investments. And let me first introduce our first time guest on the show, Mr. William King. He's been living in the United States for some time now, since 1996. At the age of 9, he went to Senegal, where he stayed for 5 years. While in Senegal, he learned and spoke French and Wolof, and also lived briefly in Gambia and Sierra Leone. He migrated to the United States and went to the University of Southern California, where he did public planning and management. He graduated in 2006. Upon graduation from 2006 to 2013, he worked with a utility company in California. That's also the purchaser of renewable energy. He worked in the supply chain division. September last year, Mr. King ventured into entrepreneurship. He described himself as an avid real estate entrepreneur. He's married with kids. He wanted me to stress that he loved Liberia and want to see Liberia succeed. Mr. King, once more, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you.
Good. Before we even begin our topic for the night, which I'm going to pass on to Mr. Alex Jones to chair, I want to welcome all our viewers across the globe. Please join us. Let's talk Liberia, investing in Liberia. But let's start some water cooler moment. I know the hottest issue in Monrovia now is the student riots and the response from the Liberian National Police. Let's talk briefly about the economics of the riot and the response of the police. Okay, everything, there is an economic part of it, okay? So I want us to start by giving our views on what happened and discussing the economics of it. Let me start with you, Alex.
Well, it's unfortunate. No matter what blames are placed, kids were injured or out of school. Either way, it's not a good thing. Again, we leave that to the political analyst to figure out who should have done what and when and who was responsible. But again, I will revert back to the situation where so long you don't have the economic stability and growth, you're going to run into a lot more problems because things have to be paid for, education, health, and that's something you just can't buy your way out of. But it's unfortunate, and I feel for the kids, because they should be in school learning, and I have kids, and I can't imagine if they didn't have an opportunity to go to school. So for us who are fortunate to be in other countries, we can make the argument in case that, oh, why are they rioting, or where their parents and what not. But think about your own child not having access to any education. So that's a very, very deplorable situation. All children must have that opportunity to go to school, no regardless of what. If we don't eat, if we don't drive cars in Liberia, the one thing we should provide is primary education free of charge.
Very, very unfortunate indeed. Mr. King, your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Definitely, I have family there, and there was a lot of videos going around, and also there was a lot of live feed that was shared on Facebook, and it's a very tough video to watch. There's just so much going on, and very unfortunate the incident in the way that it's kind of unrolling in Liberia, and definitely feel for the kids. You know, going to school, the focus should just be on learning, doing something better, and at this point in time in Liberia, definitely having to deal with their teachers not getting paid is just another something added that's a distraction. And it just reminds us more that, when we look at Liberia as diasporans and so forth, that we still have a lot of hurdles that we need to overcome. And the blame cannot be placed on a whole bunch of folks. I think it's just about looking at each other and seeing if there is anything we can do, just very little, and see how we can resolve this. Thank you.
Thank you. And yesterday gave me a flashback of March 18, 1986. I don't want to reveal too much about my
Were you a student?
And there was a riot.
Yeah.
I was at Monrovia College.
Mhm.
And according to the students, the public school students that their teachers were nice, same scenario. What they did was to attack private school students, saying the rich people had their kids in private school, so they didn't care about them. So I was considered rich. So that was the only argument. So they started to throw stones, and everything was disrupted. And so we had a closure for school for 1 month before we could go back. So these things repeat, and year after year, we still go through the same problem. Almost every year or every time, we still see the same situation of public school teachers laying down their chalks because they are not getting paid. And the only thing that I saw that when all these things happen, which are all unfortunate, what I was seeing on Facebook most of the time was during Ellen time, Mrs. Salif was able to deal with the situation this way, and the president is not dealing with the situation this way. Or they said, well, this instance, or they were blaming Henry Costa, but this one is not Henry Costa. So those two things they kept repeating. So I was getting a little upset about that, because it's like people are actually looking at the situation in a very small way. But besides that, let's talk about the money part of it. Okay, when a child is not in school, there is an opportunity for them to be out of school. They want to be in school. We have teachers, they are not taking pay. That means probably there's not enough money to pay everybody. There are a lot of things going on there. And also when people seeing those kind of brutal scenes of things that resemble chaos, especially for a country coming from war, we still have people that have not been rehabilitated, people that have not been treated, and you see those scenes. Okay, the business climate may not be that enticing or appealing for anybody wanting to do business, and all those kind of ramifications. So walk me through the business side, the economic side of what we saw yesterday. William, you can go first.
Definitely, you have investor sentiments, and I think when you look at investors in the context of dealing with Liberia and globally, there are two type of investors right now. There are foreigners and there are Liberians. And if you are a foreigner and you have significant capital and you attended the economic forum that was hosted by the Liberian government a few weeks ago, you most likely left there getting a good understanding of maybe some opportunities, potential opportunities that might make your shareholders happy. And then a few weeks later, maybe you anticipate taking a trip over there, and you hear about this type of civil unrest. So you have to ask yourself that question: is this the right timing for me, for my company? Because my obligations is to make sure that I invest my shareholders' dollars in an environment that I feel is going to be safe. And also, I might be on the line. Also, my neck might be on the line. So, from an outsider looking in, these things that are happening may not necessarily cause you to say no right now, but it definitely may cause a delay. And sometimes delays can be as good as no. Now, from the Liberian perspective, of course, looking at this, I think that our deep passion, our deep love for our country, although we see this, it may cause us to think and pause about maybe investment, but it may not cause us to pause to think or to hesitate if we have to send money back home to maybe take care of some of the daily needs that our Liberian families might need. So we still might send money, and you might even see an increase in funds going back, but it may not necessarily be placed in the right area. And so that's my sentiment, is that on both sides, the foreigner and the Liberian, you will probably see a hesitation to invest. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I concur. In order to create a good business or economic environment, you have to have good social and political stability. And that's something that, unfortunately, that's not happening in Liberia, right? And again, no matter who you want to blame, can blame Henry Costa, you can blame Santa Claus. The fact is, when your government is your responsibility, just like a father in the home. So you can't go to an investor and say, well, is Henry Costa or this person? There are many countries with challenges, with a lot of different political views, some even going through civil war. I remember, let's look at a country like Israel. Israel is always threatened. There's lots of time there's even rockets launched on Tel Aviv, but somehow they're able to manage the situation and still not scare investors. Lebanon, Beirut is another example. So again, I just think, and I will revert back to this, that unfortunately, the economic leadership in Liberia is horrible. That it's not aligned to their political will. So on the one hand, you want to rule and govern. On the other hand, you need the economy to grow in order to make that possible. So there has to be a balance between the two principles. If you say, all right, if people come on the street, you're going to tear gas them, that's fine. But then what happens? You go to the IMF, and the IMF reads the paper on front page magazine and say, well, you're asking us to help support your budget, but you tear gassing kids. They're not going to understand that, all right, the kids should have been in school. It was this person. The way the IMF works is they have managing directors from different countries that have to vote on almost every financial aid. So someone in Norway sees that picture and be like, I'm not voting. You're not going to get my vote. So somehow the government is responsible. They have to find a way. And I was reading the papers that, according to Samuel Tour, he was going to pay the teachers next week. So where did the money come from next week that wasn't there last week? If you can pay the teacher next week, you should have paid them last week, and you would have avoided all the situations. So again, that's bad planning, bad management. And no matter how you want to frame it and who you want to put the blame on, they need to get the act together quickly, because the country is declining. Economically, my prediction is the rate going to be 40 by next year if they don't do anything about it. Besides that,
you say 40?
40 going to double. There's nothing economic. There's no model can support even the 20 at this point. If you look at foreign direct investment, If you look at the GDP growth, if you, I mean, where, how do you even sustain it? For if you change all the currency and put everything in the bank, that's still not going to help you. The way your current currency is sustained is through investment, demand, and supply. Simple economics. So there's no demand for Liberian dollar. Changing it is not going to solve the problem. You have to create a situation that maybe Mr. King can throw some light on, where Liberians are, or investors are lining up to go invest in Liberia, to buy land, to, you know, they'll pay more taxes. That's the only way you can sustain a currency. You can't sustain a currency, even the US dollar. If demand would, if China were just to say tomorrow, we're going to cut down our investment in US Treasury bonds, that's it. The American dollar would decline by at least 5%. So I don't see anybody saying, hey, I want to go into Liberia right now. So how are you going to sustain the currency? That's not a political question. That's a mathematical question, an economic one. So that's something that's serious. And I think that people need to take it seriously and stop this, you know, this, everything is political and social, and who, if everybody supported George we are in the country, it still would not bring the currency to where it should be. I think that's the most elementary way you can look at it. In China, there's one party in China. That doesn't mean that the economy just grew because there's one party and there's one idea or ideology. So it's just stupid when you hear some of these people to having political and economic solution, people who can basically write their name backwards, talking about how the economy will grow. So hopefully, and yeah, as you can see in the screen, hopefully you have real economic solution where how do you get people in Liberia to purchase Liberian assets, to go in Liberian banks, put money in Liberia, and so forth. And hopefully we can discuss some of that later on.
Thank you. Well, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. Our topic today is Liberia Diaspora Investments. My guest, Mr. Alex Chuchu Jones, who is right now joining us from Tampa, Florida, and Mr. William King, who's joining us from Southern California. Gentlemen, let's go to our topic for today, and I turn it over to Alex, who's going to be chairing the forum tonight on this very important topic. Alex, let's start with investment. Okay. What is investment? Who invests? Why do we need investment?
Well, investment is just it's just a model which you want to earn future value, kind of like you want to put something aside today that will be worth more tomorrow. What they say the present value or the future value of money. So you have $1 today, you're looking down the line, maybe a year from now, you know that you're going to have inflation. And I hate to use this word, inflation, that kind of stuff. Basically, you know that your milk price is going to go up, your kids' tuition going to go up. And so you want to hedge against it. You want to provide some kind of means to be able to meet that increase in prices. So what you do is you turn to investment. Basically, that's a very practical way of looking at it. So in the case of Liberian government, you have a budget at what, $300 million, and you're generating what, $150 million or $200 million. So you have $100 million every year that you have to meet up. You can borrow the money from someone and pay 10%, 20% interest rate. You can take some of the $200 and you can put it aside where it can grow, so that next year budget, you don't look in the air and say, oh, and scratch your head and like, oh, you know, we're short again. So basically, that's where investment comes in. It comes in where you have to plan for tomorrow, expense today.
So, Mr. King, and you can take the screen off. And when we say diaspora, Liberia diaspora investment, what do we mean?
Basically, it's simple. It's looking at the diaspora, looking at who and what we are as Liberian diaspora as a whole around the world, and looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, okay, I'm a Liberian, I employed, what is available for me and how can I look at my country, Liberia, and how can I invest in it? How can I invest in it? The same way that I invest in the country where I work. So, for example, if I'm in the U.S., every 2 weeks, I put some money away in my 401k, and that 401k is pooled together by a managing firm, an institutional firm that in turn takes that money, and with a few directive of mine, be it a moderate risk, low risk tolerance that I indicate in my 401k, they go out there and they find investments like that and they place my money in it. And that money works, and that money turns around, and it helps build the country where I work in. So for example, in the US, if I'm a low risk type of person, I might invest in treasury bonds, I might invest in municipal bonds. And those municipal bonds, some of them are used to invest in a utility plant, maybe a water sewage or treatment plant. And that's going to give me a return over time. But the idea here is that the local government has access to that fund, uses that fund to build something that the city needs, employ folks, and in return, the economy turns and the economy spins. Now, in the case for Liberia, the diaspora for us is what I want us to start doing, or at least maybe planting a seed, is to start asking ourselves that question. How can I have access to something like that in Liberia? How can we mobilize something like that for Liberia and help build that would create jobs, that would create opportunities, and that's going to put us into the capital market? And if there isn't anything like that out there right now, there isn't anything available, then we are always going to be in a situation where we are relying on phantom investors, and we're relying on the government to do something that, quite frankly, they were not there to do. And also, lastly, we will be relying on the UN. And it's going to be a human instinct for us to, revert back or create a situation where the UN has to come back because we just need that outside income. Yeah, so diaspora investing is something that we don't have in most countries. Maybe there are a few examples: Ghana, Senegal, Singapore, and some other countries where they are realizing that there's something there bigger than the UN and bigger than the country itself in terms of how you stimulate growth, and they're tapping into it.
You just blew my mind. I didn't know I was investing in America by having a 401k.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we don't really think about it, and most of the time, for us, we consider ourselves we say, look, we don't do investments that is too complicated for us, and that we don't like losing money, and that we cherish our money and where we actually put it. But if you ask most people that invest in 401k, maybe Liberians, have you ever met your investment advisor for your 401k? And they never have. And if you ask them during the years where maybe your 401k lost value, maybe like 2018, almost everyone 401k took a hit. And the question is, did you go and protest, and did you go and find that guy and say he was going to go to jail for putting the investment in something wrong? So none of those things happened. But what we did is that we kept every 2 weeks putting money in. And so it's the irony of that is that we are sometimes forgiving in that space with our money when it comes to those type of investments in countries where we work. But when it comes to Liberia, we right now, the news that is coming out, and it's so sad, is to say that, don't invest in Liberia. And it couldn't be even more wrong. Right now, this is the time for us to really mobilize.
Yeah. And that's why it's very important that we having the discussion tonight, even though due to some political activities or the way we are thinking right now, this kind of discussion do not attract as many people as it will if we were discussing the riot and the politics of it. But, before I turn to you, before I give this to you, Alex.
Yes, go
So,
ahead.
so investing in Liberia, anytime you hear even people in Liberia talk about investors, we're talking about Westerners or white people.
Yes, yes,
You know,
yes.
so, and we will go deep into this about the ways in which we can invest, but where does that idea come from?
Well, first, before I mean, Mr. King is a sophisticated investor, so I want to break some of the things he just said down, because this show is the idea of this show is for people to actually get basic understanding about business in Liberia and investments and economics. How so basically, so some of the names he was giving, like 401k, most people are familiar with that. But when you're talking about bonds, what is a bond? Not many people know what a bond is. So let's go back to that theory, and very quickly, I want to share something on the screen. So if you get a copybook and a pen tonight, we'll be doing a lot of teaching, basic teaching. Uh, so, so you see, so when you see investment, basically these are some of the things you can invest in. In this case, here, it's a REIT. What a REIT is like real estate, where people pull different real estate investments together, property, commercial property, and they create a trust or a fund, and then they break the fund up and set it to pieces. Which Dennis will go now when they take out his $1,000 or $2,000 every paycheck because he makes a lot of money, then somebody will go into that. So instead of Dennis going, you say, I don't know anything about buying houses and selling it like Mr. King, he just goes to a financial advisor and say, look, I want to invest in housing, but I don't have the time, I don't have the ability. So you invest in what they call a REIT, and it's a real estate investment trust. That's this one here. So in America, and these are real numbers. So you see the source: JP Morgan Asset Management, Berkeley, Bloomberg. So these are real data from 1999 to 2018. This was the annualized return. Every year it grew by 9.9%. Okay. Another thing, gold, which is a commodity. We have a lot of gold in Liberia, but you hear again, WISWA, you hear, let's go get investors to come and invest in gold. Gold prices have come down, have increased from around $400, right, an ounce to almost $1,500, $1,400 today, just in the last 10 years. So Liberia should be a very rich country because we mine gold. We have deposits of gold. But we've given all to the foreign investor, like going back to your question. And so the foreign investor goes and gives the Liberian government $10 million, a signing bonus there, and then they take the gold and they bring it on the international market, and they break it up, they clean it, they polish it, and they sell that, put that gold in a trust. And so that's a gold trust. So Liberia don't have much oil, so we'll skip this part. Let's go back to some of the things the King was saying about now your 401k. What is your 401k? Your 401k is nothing but bonds and stocks. So when you see when you go and buy a computer, what are IBM, Facebook, that every Liberian is so fascinated about. The question I want to ask is, how much are you making for Facebook? Facebook has a stock. You can buy Facebook stock. I think it's now like $180 today, and that stock was $35 just a few years ago. Liberia government could have invested in it. You and I could invest in it, and we'll have money. So your investment fund and your 401k, when Dennis said, yeah, you build in America because it's going into these things directly. So what happened? Facebook got more money. They can spend, they can buy WhatsApp for, I don't know how much, 100 billion or 20 billion. 20 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
So they can buy it, and Microsoft can buy LinkedIn, because every month or every paycheck, there's an inflow of cash coming in from us into these companies through what is called a fortune. And this just means the best 500 US company, S&P 500. That's what you have here. And then this is the bonds. These are all bonds, ETFs. Basically, when the government needs money, American government does not have money. It's one of the most indebted government on the planet by far. The way they sustain themselves is the issue I owe you. You give them $10,000 for 5 years, they will give you 2-3% every year, and at the end of the 5 year, they give you your $5 million or $5,000 back. That's what a bond is. Government use it, countries use it, companies use it, and what have you. So these are just basic things. So when you start thinking about Liberian politics and you start saying, let go and let commies, these are the questions you always be asking. Or Joshua, with all these things, you can cry for now till whenever Liberia will not grow and there will be no economic development, because every country is the corporations that make the country economic good. So the schools, for instance, the districts, every school has a district. They pay taxes. They take the money and they put it in one of these things. They hire an investment manager and they put the money in those things. So, and then last chart here, again, get your pencil and paper. We're not here for politics or formality. We want people to ask sensible questions and reasonable questions so we can dialogue. So when you talk about risk, all this stuff here in red, that's what people look at as high risk. And I'll make it a little bigger. So that's your mutual funds, your ETFs, which is just a bunch of stock, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, BP, all the rest of it. Then you have direct equity, which is you actually going into the actual company and buying the stock. The ones here in the yellow are medium things like real estate, again, I mentioned the real estate investment trust and so forth. And then the ones in the green is what you call safe investment, where you get your money back no matter what, even if you don't make a lot of return. So now these are all things any country can do tomorrow. You don't need to go and file any kind of paperwork with a World Bank or the IMF. You don't need to go to Washington, D.C. for them to send an expert. You can go right online. They can say, this is it. Every country in the world, whether you China, Indonesia, Singapore, these are the 4 things they have that make the economy. The cell phone you buy, South Korea, Samsung. Again, I think I mentioned before, South Korea was poor in Liberia in 1960. But what happened today? South Korea is one of the richest countries in the world because they built these companies and the people started to invest in these companies instead of taking the money and bringing it into London and Washington D.C. America. Now you can leave some here, but you have to figure out. Well, Liberians have to figure out ways to start talking about these things if they want to grow. So they want to stop the riot. They want to pay the teachers. Yeah, the country does not have money because there's no investment. That's the bottom line.
You're painting a very scary picture.
Can I chime in, Alex?
Sure, go, absolutely.
All right. So so from one end, the country doesn't have money, but we can get that real quick, real fast. That is not an exaggeration, okay? Now let me add something to what Alex mentioned. In the United States of America, the debt for the US, if you divided it for every taxpayer, the debt on every taxpayer head is 183,000 US dollars. Okay, that's the debt on every US taxpayer. Now, if you look at Liberia, maybe our debt is 1.3 billion, maybe 1.3 billion. The debt on every Liberian head, 4.2 million people, is $310. I mean, and we walk around in the U.S. and the roads are fixed, hospitals is functioning, all of that stuff is kind of going well. And we just go about it and we don't really think about this. But the reality is that for the American citizen or for the American government, think about it. I'm going to take on more debt to come to your country to give you aid or invest. And do you really think that, I'm not going to have a strong need for that money? I'm going to have a strong need for that money because it's a pay to play.
No. Let me stop you right there because you're saying something that you are losing me. So now,
okay,
Americans have more debt because America owe a lot of money. So if you divide how much America owe among the citizens,
among
taxpayers,
yes,
that's thousands.
183,000.
183,000. So I alone as a taxpayer, I
Mhm.
owe $183,000.
Yeah, you on the, well, yes.
So,
Yes.
but in Liberia, the average Liberian taxpayer owe $300.
Correct.
$310.
What does
Well,
that
we just do the citizen. We just do the citizens, all
Okay,
the citizens.
citizen. So what does that mean? It means I'm kind of debt free compared to an American.
And you know, and that's exactly the point. And again, we'll go back to the classroom here to show that on a.
So before you go back to the classroom, so when an American who has more debt come to me, he's not really helping me. He's coming to get money to pay his debt. Is that what you
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, but I mean that's where again where you know I saw a picture where this guy is in the hole and this guy is reaching down to act pretending that you helping the guy get up, and the ladder is behind him, but the guy in the hole can't see the ladder. So most times, Liberian, this is just a fact. Africans, we think that a Western country is there to help us. Not that it's there to hurt us. They're not there to hurt us, but they are competitors. If they help us too much, then we'll compete against them. Okay? And that don't make any sense. So if I'm France, why would I want, for instance, if I'm sending, or let's say I'm UK, British Petroleum is making, company now is making maybe $1 billion a year from Nigeria. Let's use Nigeria as an example. And that 1 billion, they're paying 35% tax to the British government. So that's how much? $350 million every year that British Petroleum is paying to the UK government. That's what fund the schools, that's what build the roads. Okay, so Nigerian president now, or aspiring, get her and say, when I'm president, the British are going to help me because I'm a nice guy and I believe in democracy. Okay, so I want to help them to build our own refinery and build our own companies. So he goes to Downing Street and he talks to the politicians and say, we want you to help us. We have the oil, but we need a company. And we need the loans from your banks to help us build this company. Now, Dennis, tell me, do you think any British bank or any British politician would be so fascinated to give Nigeria money to build a refinery, train them how to run that refinery so they can put BP out of business?
I'd be crazy to do that.
Okay, so think about Liberia now. When we jump to Washington, D.C., and they smile at us and say, oh, yeah, we want to help Liberia. The only thing they're helping you with is technical support and maybe basic education. No country is going to try to help you while hurt themselves. If you look at the trade war right now that's going on between China and America, that's basically what's happening, right? China is competing with America. They're competing with the same product that America is making. China is making it for less. America said, no, you got to, because we have more standards, you don't have the same standards. You depreciate your currency, so it's not fair. So why in God's world, with any Western country, they got to fight China, they got to fight each other economically? Why would they want to help a country like Liberia? If anybody can answer that question for me, I would really love to know that answer. No. The idea here is Liberians have to help himself. And I think we should hear more from Mr. King. He has some other plan under his sleeve.
And that first, we want to welcome our West African correspondent, Mr. Edward Amara, who is right there in Freetown. Edward, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning from Sierra Leone. It is just 3 minutes to morning time. Yeah, good morning. I hope you guys are doing good. I'm consciously listening to the conversation. Congratulations on your hard work.
And you don't look like it's in the morning, man. You are all ready to go.
Yeah, rise it. What is the morning hours? I'm happy joining you guys.
Okay, good. Welcome. And
thank you.
Welcome, Edward.
And Edward,
yeah.
we are, and at this point, I will turn over to Alex, who's going to be now cheering. I have all my doubts cleared now, so Alex, you can take it away from me to cheer the forum for the night.
So basically, I would just be asking Mr. King, and would be discussing, having an open discussion. You can chime in, Dennis, and if you can open the line, as soon as possible, or take questions, and then we'll go through the answers. So, Mr. King, having said that, what would you think would be the best way for Liberia to start to invest in their own country?
That's a very good question. Let me bring something up, and let me make an attempt to maybe answer that. Okay, let me bring something up.
We can continue the conversation until you're okay.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yes, we can see the flag.
Okay. So my dad always say sometimes the quickest way to a point is to just go direct. But sometimes when I go direct, I get in trouble because people say explain it, right? So long story short, we as Liberians, we need to mobilize in such a way that we can pool our resources together to invest in Liberia. Now, let me tell you what I mean, and let me say that what I am proposing is not something that we're not doing. It's not something that we're not doing. So let me give you an example. Now, this number right here comes from this source, the comat.org, and they're known consulting company that works with the World Bank. Okay, so of course they didn't have all the numbers for Sierra Leone because I don't think Sierra Leone is that low. Okay, because that would really be disappointing. But if you look at it, this is the remittance. This is the type of money that flows from the diaspora globally. And in 2016, it was 549 million for Liberia. And then it was 2017, it was 574 million. Now you look at Senegal, it's in the billions, and you look at Ghana. Now, why do I bring up these two countries, Ghana and Senegal, and also Sierra Leone? Well, because I believe that our current government, just from looking at what's going on, is that they hold in high esteem the country of Ghana and Senegal. And so this is just to give you an idea of what's going on. Now, their population is more than ours, but look at the percentage, 25.9. So Liberians, we do send money. We do send money back home. So the question is, why is it then that when it comes to investing, why is it so elusive? Why is it that that we're not seeing this? Well, it's because we send money home individually. We send money home for school fees. We send money home for medical and different things like that. So the idea that I'm looking at this and I'm proposing is hey, let's look to see if we can set up some kind of a fund, or some kind of our government can set up some kind of a bond that Liberians globally can put their money in. Now you're saying, well, what should we invest in? What is it? What is in the industry? What is in Liberia that is making money? Well, that's definitely a topic for another time because we can go the width and depth, and there are many industries that we can explore. But
so Mr. King, let me interrupt you right there. So the question was, what do you think is the best way in order to increase investment in Liberia? And I'm hearing your answer is that they should invest in remittances, or the funding that's going to remittances. Is that your answer? It's not World Bank. It's not.
What my answer is that let's look to invest in a in some type of a fund or a corporation or a bond that focuses on investing in Liberia. So we can continue our remittance. but just understand that the remittance is not investment.
Okay.
And so we can definitely pull some more money together and put it in there.
Okay. So why now? Tell me why we should invest in some corporation or bond or something as opposed to any other means.
Because you have the opportunity to, in so many words, you're coming as one unit. So the fact that is that you have something that is regulated, that is important. You have something that is has the proper governing structure, which is very important. And also, when you go to the table to speak to the Liberian government, you're not approaching the government as a solo lone investor with maybe 50 grand or maybe 2 million or maybe $5 million, because those are all micro investments. What you're doing is that you're approaching the table with maybe to the tune of 50 to 100 to 120 to $200 million. And with that kind of a money to invest, your seat at the table and your position at the table changes. And the beautiful thing about that is that it's not foreigners who are at the table asking that. These are Liberians who are now at the table driving things that they're passionate about.
So you're saying that all these years we've gotten it wrong. Part of the reason why our GDP is not growing, part of the reason why we have one of the biggest poverty rates, largest poverty rate in the world, is because we don't have corporations and we don't have investments, vehicles. That money is going to Liberia, but it's going the wrong way. Is that basically what you're just saying?
Yes, definitely. The money that is going to Liberia is consumer spending money. We send it, oh, somebody needs school fee, pays. It goes to the school turns around, pays for the diesel, it pays for the electricity, pays the teacher turns around and pays for their food, their living expenses, they pay for gas to get back and forth to school. All these things that is going on is just heavy consumer. And so you're not going to see a lot of value. And I want to give an example that I think is really gonna really stick. Let me give an example that's really going to stick. Just look at Liberia as if it was a bunch of Uber drivers. So you don't want to be the one that's just driving Uber and making that $100 for Uber per day in Liberia. Now you may make $100 for yourself with Uber and you put that in your pocket and they're paying you and they're only maybe keeping 10%, maybe $10. But you see, the main thing is that Uber is traded on the capital market, and that $10 profit, if you look at it, that might be traded at 40 times its value. That $100 might be traded at 40 times its value. Versus for us in Liberia, we are not in that market and we have no gains when it comes to the corporation. Now, if we are a corporation and we are investing and there's a return on that investing, we can then trade or borrow against it at whatever that X is. Now, okay. X may be 20 or 30 or 40.
So let's break that down again. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Liberian
Business
and Economic Forum for Africa. And we have today Mr. King from California. We have Mr. Edward Amara from Sierra Leone, Freetown, Sierra Leone. Of course, Your Honorable, Your Highness, and Mr. Dennis Ja is in the house. You can acquire Dennis. We need you to pick it up a little bit.
No, I wanted to ask the both of you, right? Because you're saying I'm sending money to Liberia to my sister, to my niece, and everybody else. Are you telling me that I shouldn't send that money? I should put it into joining with some other people so that we can form a corporation? Or how does this whole remittances and investment, how does it come into play?
So who's that question?
Any one of you, because
I would say yes, and I would say yes because the only thing you're really doing is you're prolonging the pain.
Let
me say it, Dennis. You know, it's like somebody is criminally sick or somebody is very ill, right? And you're giving them what you give in the Tylenol when a person has a serious medical condition where they need surgery or they need, something. So if you send, let's assume, if every month you send $100 to your family member, okay, or somebody, loved one, whoever, girlfriend, whoever, side chick, whatever. Every month you send them $100. That's $200 a year. For the next 5 years, okay? What do you think that person have the ability to become a Liberian millionaire or a Liberian successful person? And the answer is no. That $100 would not even sustain it. But let's do the same math again. Let's say if you put $100 into a fund, put it in any fund in Liberia. Don't forget Liberian people say they corrupt. Don't put it in Liberia. Let's say you put it in ArcelorMittal, that's doing business in Liberia. Every month you put $100 in the stock, right? And 5 years from now, you take that money and you give it to that same person. You take that stock and you say, okay, for the last 5 years, I didn't send you no money, but all the stock that I bought is yours. Who's in a better situation? The person who you send money to every month, $100, or the person who you just gave now this 100 or 2 or 300,000? And by the way, that company will make money forever until it goes bankrupt or it dissolves or another company buys it. So they can even pass that stock to their children. So to answer your question, yes, help your family. I mean, they have to eat, but you should also focus on an investment that will make sense in the long term for them, rather than just, you just giving them survivalship. You're giving them now a future to say that, okay, this is something where, whether it's a real estate trust, that company you can say right now, okay, let's start a real estate trust in Liberia. And that's another point I wanted to go to.
Alex, do these things exist in Liberia? Is there a company in Liberia that I can buy stocks in? Is there?
No, currently, that question is tricky because most of the companies in Liberia are stock companies, including your LBDI. The only difference is our government has not allowed Liberians the opportunity to invest in those companies. So ArcelorMittal is a public company. The Indian family, the Tata family owns it. BP, Chevron, Samsung, all the Chinese company, the MNT, the cell phone company from South Africa that works with the Liberians. These are all publicly traded companies. The banks, First Bank, most of our banks in Liberia, they are all public Trump company, but Liberian don't get we're back when they say you don't get queen. But why these people are making millions off of Liberians because we can't invest in our own company. So all the companies, most of the companies in Liberia are investable companies, but we're not looking at that. We just wanted to come, and we don't have any provision to say ArcelorMittal, you can come to Liberia, but 50% of your Liberian holdings has to be a stock for Liberian school teachers. Okay, that would have solved that problem. Or you can say Firestone, you can come to Liberia, but 25% of all Firestone holdings in Liberia has to be equity that is given to the people who clean the streets, the electricity company.
What does that mean? It has to be equity for people who clean the streets. What does it mean?
What I'm saying is, when we sign these deals, let's say First Bank, for instance, or EcoBank, good example, EcoBank. So EcoBank is a corporation that is incorporated in several different countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, and wherever. It's a publicly traded company. In Liberia, they take the money they raise from the Nigerians and the Ghanaians and the Gambians and whoever, and they open a branch in Liberia. Liberia Limited EcoBank. They hire a few Liberians there. But Liberians don't have the opportunity to invest in EcoBank in Liberia. But somebody who lives in Ghana can buy EcoBank stock because EcoBank is traded on the Ghana Stock Exchange. So the person who in Liberia, the money they're making, so EcoBank, let's say they make $20 million every year profit, most of that money goes in dividends to the shareholders. It goes to the people who own the stocks of EcoBank. So after they pay the drivers and the receptionists and the teller, the bulk of the money is sent back to those shareholders in those countries. So when you see your Nigerian or Ghanaian guy in Ghana riding Rolls Royce and traveling to Dubai, and you sit down and say, "Oh, these people that's coming from all these different African countries that so stupid, or their leaders are so silly, the financial leaders, that they can say, okay, EcoBank, you can sell shares to Ghanaian, you can sell shares to Nigerian. So in Liberia, you must sell shares to Liberians to have the opportunity to grow with you. So that's what Mr. King is trying to break down and say, take somebody with remittance money, create some kind of company or some kind of fund. Maybe one person can go to EcoBank and buy a share with $100. But if you took 100 people, $100 a month, they can go to EcoBank and say, hey, we want 5% of EcoBank, or we want 2% of EcoBank. Now we become shareholders. Am I correct, Mr. King?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Dennis,
Wow.
turn it back over to you.
Johnny else, this is focused on Liberia. We are discussing Liberia Diaspora investments. And if you want to join the conversation, the number is being posted. That's call the number 712-770-8002 and put in the code 229545. Now, if you call that teleconference number and they tell you it's 1 cent per minute, don't be scared to spend 1 cent per minute. You're only going to talk for less than 2 minutes. So pay that 2 cents and listen to this very important lecture, because sometimes is I don't want to say disheartening that there is not much interest developed in this. So just like the same way I'm sending $100 for the past 18 years and it's not making money, we are not thinking big. So we keep doing these trickles. So we keep listening to political lectures. Someone tell you that, and even when they write their platform, they don't even put anything that they say, we're going to invest in agriculture. We're going to invest in, they don't say anything with concrete plans. But we enjoy listening to that. But see what you just explained, that, why would a company come to Liberia and we are not asking them to sell shares to Liberia? What's the risk for that company to sell shares in Liberia that they won't want to act?
Well, let me just bring a couple of things up. I don't necessarily think that it's a risk. I think it's just ignorance of not knowing, because our focus has been so much on, when we look at the investor, we look at, how do I say it? We look at employment. We look at employment, right? So you're saying that, hey, if ArcelorMittal comes to do an investment, they're going to employ 7,000 people. So the focus has mostly been on, okay, I get 7,000 people and I get my concessions.
And to add to that, before you continue,
yeah,
ArcelorMittal, because you are in our area, so build our school or build a road, and that's go ahead.
Yeah. So they look at these things. And what it is that you are getting riches. You're getting riches and you're not getting wealth. And also you have the employer who's getting money, but he has no avenue to kind of make it grow, or he has nothing to kind of put some of that money back into a system that can then make things grow. And that's all I'm saying. Now, to the Liberian that's on the ground, I will make this real simple, and you're going to laugh, Dennis, when I say this. It's a global Susu club.
I started laughing, even just by saying that I'm going to laugh, I started laughing already. And I really asked that before. I asked one guy, one Liberian financial expert, like, we've been doing this Susu for so long. When are we going to take it to the next level?
That's the next level.
On that global Susu club.
No, I mean, you know, when you look at Susu, and by the way, I was part of my local Susu club, and the only reason why I'm not part of it is because I took on the role to be the president of the association. So it's a lot of time, and I know my wife is going to kill me for saying this, but my wife is Nigerian, so she say you can't spend too much time with your Liberian people now. But long story short, right? The idea here is, we come together, we put money in, and we grow the pot, and people borrow from the pot. And when you borrow from the pot, there's a certain interest rate that you are charged. And if you don't borrow from the pot, of course, some Susus, if you don't borrow from the pot, you pay a penalty. Now, we don't, at the global level, taking it to the next level, you can't do that. But the idea here with the SUSU is the same thing that you can take globally, where we pool the resources together and we look at the needs and we look at where there's needs. But more importantly, you're looking at bankable opportunities. Bankable opportunities. So you look at Liberia and you find where there are bankable opportunities, meaning that investors, Liberians, feel that there's an opportunity to make some money. So you kind of have that good fundamental, which is SUSU, is that you always have that fundamental ground where they're going to invest. People want to have the small market. They come to you back and forth and so forth. That's very, very critical. But and the other thing is that we don't look at value. We don't look at value. For example, what do I mean? What I mean is that in the US, if someone wants to buy my dollar, that I make every month, that I make on rent, let's say every rent I make $1 and that year is like $12. Well, you have to pay me for that $12. You pay me for income. And there's a value to that. So you're not just going to give me $12 and tell me buy. I'm going to assign a multiple to that. So maybe I'm going to say, hey.
Mr. King, the people don't understand what multiple is. So please break it down.
All right. Sorry. So let me put it this way. Let's say I make $12 for the year. I make $12. Now, every year, I'm going to make my $12. Now, if you come, you say, hey, I want to buy your $12. I said, well, if I sell you my $12, I would not make that $12 anymore. You would be making it. They say, yes. I said, okay, fine. In order for you to buy my $12, I think that it is worth, maybe $100. So
future value again.
Future value
or something.
Future value,
correct.
yeah. Okay. So you give me $100 and I'm willing to let you hold that $12. Now, that's one way. Now, here's the other part where it gets better. When you go to the bank said, man, you're making $12 every year. Look, can I lend you some money against that $12 that you make every year? So now you're into leverage. So what I'm saying is that
today we're ready in classroom.
Okay, so put it this way. If we Liberians came together and we put together $100 million fund or corporation, $100 million cash, right? When we go to Liberia,
let's say $10 million.
10 million.
Let's bring it down.
Let's say 10 million.
$10 million.
Okay. If we have 10 million,
right,
and we go to Liberia and say we have $10 million
in the bank.
Okay. In the bank.
All right.
There are banks who will say, listen, I will lend you more than $10 million because you have 10 million in the bank.
Correct.
So they may be able to lend me 20 or 30 million dollars against that 10 million, or maybe more, right?
Right.
Maybe more, way more.
That's what leverage is.
That's what leverage is.
Okay.
But if you're not in this game, ArcelorMittal can go and borrow.
Correct.
Coca-Cola can go and borrow. Other corporations may go and they may borrow.
Now that they do every day.
They actually do. But we don't. Now why is it that us as Liberians, we haven't tapped into that right now? To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I mean, I could say maybe it's ignorance, or I could say some other reason. But to be honest with you, there might be many variables. But I do know that right now for us, we live right now at the moment. We live in one of the best times for us to do this, because no foreign investor is focused on Liberia, number one. And number two, with the creation of this thing in our hand we call the phone, which gives us the ability that you don't have to fly anywhere to deposit
purchase
money,
right,
to purchase a share. You can be anywhere in the world, even in Liberia, and you can purchase a share.
Okay, so I just want to stop here. I know we have to go to Amara shortly, but before I go, so we're talking about ArcelorMittal, right? So let's actually get the real data from ArcelorMittal, which is on the screen. So right now, one share of ArcelorMittal costs only $14.32. That's it. One share. You can go to any brokerage, any bank in America, UK, Singapore, China, and you can buy a
Online.
share.
You can go online.
We can go right now and buy a share. You can buy 100 shares. You can buy 1 million shares. So even though ArcelorMittal does not have a mine in America, the last time I checked, they make no money from America. Where are the investors? So let's go to the site where the investors that they have. So we go to the shareholders, and we can see here that the institutional investors are the people, the pension fund, Genesis money, all these people that are, you know, every day working 2-3 jobs. These are all these funds that you're looking at here.
Man, don't got it where? Don't got it in Liberia.
You see, so the fund that Mr. King is talking about, these are what they're talking about. You see, all LSC, they own ArcelorMittal. So for instance, this person has less than 1%, quarter of 1%, going all the way down. So you're talking about a company now that's $15 billion. Okay. Now, to Mr. King's point, ArcelorMittal does not have the money to give Liberian government $1 billion or to even buy the equipment to go to Liberia to invest. And then look at the financial, okay, and see how much money on the income statement audit. So they make around $62 billion every year. That's in 2015. In 2018, they made $72 billion, right? And you go all the way down here, you see what the net income is. The net income is $5.1 billion in 2018. So the last time I checked, Liberian government got what? Now in cash was $1.5 billion. In fact, the deal was so sweet. It was $1 billion. They came back to Liberia and said, we'll give you another $500 million. Why you think so? They're making $5 billion each year. So in 2018, if you go back to 2015, which is around the time that ArcelorMittal went to Liberia, and correct me if I'm wrong, they actually show a loss. They lost $7.9 billion that year in 2018. But guess what happened? The next year, they made 1.8. They went in the following year, they made 4.8. Why? Liberian iron ore and other countries, not just Liberia. So they went to the bank. They came to these investors and said, look, we see a great, we're losing money right now because we know iron ore and gold prices is going to go up. We know this country here, they don't know the value. We're going to go give them a few $100 million. We're going to get all the asset, right? And then when we put those assets on the market, we're going to make billions. So they go to Bank of America, they go to Morgan Stanley. Oh, sure, I'm in it for $2 billion. How much you need? They go to Liberia, they hire all these people, the few people who are in the mines, but all the executives are coming from India, London, wherever. They're making $2.5 million. And Liberian people are suffering. These are not hypothetical questions. This is the actual from CNN business. These are the shareholders. They forecast the information. The share of ArcelorMittal is $14.32 as of today. So why Liberia cannot sell up ArcelorMittal and do the same thing? That's the $1 million question. If Liberia, there's nothing they're doing that is limited. In fact, this is a company that the Tata brothers in India, we have a Tata Cars. They are the ones who run this company. They are the major shareholders of it. But we have all our smart book people jumping around. Everybody won't be president. Everybody think they won't be senator or representative. Why some of these people not saying, you know what, instead of us letting ArcelorMittal come here or BHP Billiton, and then look at all the competitors here. You see all the familiar names. The familiar names that go to Africa and all these countries. So Ghana are figuring it out. So now Ghana is saying if you come to ArcelorMittal or Postcore, and there's some of BHP Billiton, there's a few others, are saying we can invest in our own mines. We can invest in our own companies. So they're setting up these LLC in Ghana where they're raising money from the people $1 at a time or $100 at a time, and they're going and they're building their own companies. And they put in those same companies. So now ArcelorMittal goes to Ghana, Ghanaians say, no, we thank you very much. You can come as a limited partner. We'll give you 25%. or 10%. You give us the expertise or you guarantee us the loan, but we're going to have 75%. If you go to a place like Botswana, that's what Botswana is doing. So Botswana, all their mines and all their diamonds and everything, they set up a state corporation. And the corporation is the one that managing.
But Alex,
can I chime in, Dennis? Dennis, one more thing that Alex mentioned. Now, as Ghana, as Selamita come to the table, I'm just looking at them as one option. I'm saying, okay, I hear what you got to say. You're going to bid for my business. So I hear what you got to say. Now I want to hear what the other mining company has to say, and the other one has to say. Because now I'm just looking at you as a corporation that can provide a service.
So my question is, if I reject ArcelorMittal, I don't have the equipment to mine Mount Tokadi or Wologisi. So what am I doing?
You have money. That's the most important.
Well, forget the money. You have an asset. You have gold.
You have an asset. You have the asset.
The asset is money. ArcelorMittal, they don't have, all they're having is they're going, making very beautiful business plan, right? And then they're going to hire people like King, you know, and then they say, hey, you look good, so we're going to put you there to go negotiate. They're going to take the gold and find out how many tons of gold they can get, and that's called a forecast. So if you look here, you'll see they'll give you the forecast of how much they think they're going to make in the coming years based on the price of iron ore, the price of steel, the price of all these things. Then they take that money and they take that number, those numbers, and they take it to a bank, like Bank of America, where you put in your $100 and $300. They're not keeping it in the vault. Yeah. They're taking that money now, and they say, oh, ArcelorMittal came up with this great plan to go to Liberia, go to Sierra Leone, and to invest. They're going to make us a lot of money. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all your little people money. You don't know why you're sleeping. We're going to give it to this company. And they're going to go there now, buy the material, the mining equipment. In fact, they're not even going to buy it. Then they go to Caterpillar. They tell Caterpillar, say, we need a line of credit for what? Maybe what? $25 million. So Caterpillar said, fine. We're struggling on sales right now. Sales are slow in China and America. In fact, we only give you 2%. How much equipment you need? Then they go to Deere. So at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of people sitting down in a table, and before you know it, they've come up with $1-2 billion. But before we get up in the morning,
and the money stay in the bank. And the money stay.
And they had no money, and this company had no expertise in mining. So what they do? They go to MIT and say, look, you just graduated in mining, we'll give you $200,000. Come run our operation in Liberia. Okay? You go to Liberia, 200. So that's it. It's nothing more than every corporation in Liberia or in the world. That's how it's done. We have the manager, just the problem in Liberia, unfortunately, you know, most of our people in finance, they don't have the practical know-how how to structure these deals. So the people who see it in the textbook, they don't know, you know, when they get back home, the things that they learned in 1989 or in 2000 when they graduated.
Don't even go there.
Well, I'm just saying. So how can you go and say ArcelorMittal right now when people talking about the price of gold and diamond today? Now where it was 5 years ago. In fact, it's not even traded anymore. Gold and diamond is not even traded. They're all being commoditized. So you don't even need the physical gold anymore. You sell the security of the gold.
So Alex, actually these companies like ArcelorMittal, the people that are doing it, they don't have to know a jack about mining.
Absolutely not.
And if you go in, like, everybody's having a logging company in those days, and you got to be somebody from somewhere. I said we don't know how to cut tree down.
Well, but you see, we always want to do it one way. Let's take an example. Let's look at media. Let's look at CNN. So let's look at CNN and what we're talking about media. Everybody today won't be a media executive. Everybody today have their little Facebook and a little thing, right? What is CNN? CNN is a public corporation. Okay, it's a public corporation that's owned by Time Warner Communications. Okay, so what Time Warner Communications did or is doing is they go out and they took all the small station, the internet from Yahoo, right? And they combine all these people together and say, instead of y'all having to compete against yourself, and I'll get the they stack in a little bit. Instead of you're going to have to compete against each other, this wasn't on 2 o'clock. Why all of you guys can just form one entity? We'll call it Liberia Media Corporation. Okay, and we will go. We'll all invest in our one corporation. Dennis will be on Sunday. Henry Council will be on Monday. The Liberia government will be on Tuesday. It doesn't matter, right? We have debates. We have talk show. We have everything. And we sell the material. We sell the advertisement. So we bring all the numbers together and we'll go to a bank and say, look, how many people watching? We have 1 million people watching every day. Then the bank will say, okay, you know what? You can build your own network. So the problem in Liberia is we don't have the institution. We don't have business institution. Everybody politician.
All right. Thank you so much. At this time, let me go to my our West African correspondent. And if you just joining us, this is focused on Liberia. We are talking about investment in Liberia, and these are one of the issues that make me hold my head like this. It's like investment in Liberia, as these guys are explaining, is so simple. But why are we not doing it? Mr. Amara, before you come up with the news roundup, let's hear from you on this whole topic of investment.
Thank you very much. I am just listening to the interesting conversation. I must admit that I have learned a lot. Having said that, I listened to your guest King, his analysis, and I watch at the remittance rate that is sending to Sierra Leone. To me, I think sometimes the analysis was not done, or sometimes the person who did it never captured the right figures, because seeing something 1.2 is too infinitesimal, very little to be accounted for. Having said that, I think what is really wrong with Liberia and Sierra Leone is that there are certain people here who are educated, but they are educated fools. In essence, here, they do not have that kind of financial literacy. You can have your education, but as long as you don't have financial literacy, it's very difficult for you to manipulate money at the end of the day to gain profit. Most of these things that are seen here, in fact, all we need here, we have everything that it takes into Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, Sub-Saharan Africa in general. But unfortunately, we lack the financial literacy, how we can manage to manipulate this money from one stage to another, we can make profits. At the end of the day, those who are highly literate in financial affairs, they can easily come here and bend the rules in their own favor. So the best thing that our government, because you cannot discuss economic situation when you do not come in with the parastatals or the operating system. The operating system here to me is the government. The government must be able to give a people adequate quality education that made me be able to invest into certain of these banks. Most of these banks who are here, they are foreign investors. You go into Liberia, you come into Sierra Leone, they are foreign investors. These banks are not only benefit the shareholder, but people, Liberians have money, Sierra Leoneans have money, but they're not investing into this banking institution. The reason there is something wrong. The information being supplied to them is not adequate. So it is high times people like Alex King, who are actually highly educated to this financial institution, come down to their level and at least try to educate them so that they can know the benefit of investing into finance or having financial literacy. But thank you very much.
And we want them to watch Focus on Liberia every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and watch the Business Economic Forum.
Absolutely. And I normally share our information to some colleagues, and I tell you, by very soon, I do believe that people will start focusing on us. Okay, coming towards some of the stories that are actually taking place into Africa. We have some interesting top stories coming into Africa. The first thing, this evening, we have some breaking news that Liberia is the country that is rated top on the world list when it comes to helping strangers. Liberia has chosen to follow the principle of Africa. Like, we are very moral, we believe we are religious, and we believe in helping one another. So when you watch into the world ranking, it said Liberia is the most country in the world that helps strangers, followed by Sierra Leone second. Then we have USA coming into third. We have Iraq that is part of Asia. Iraq is around 7. Then we have Canada and New Zealand, which is part of Canada is part of America, and New Zealand is part of Europe. And when it comes to the countries that are generous into the world, we see Kenya is the 17th into the world and the first into Africa. Liberia followed by 17th position. Then we are seeing Sierra Leone coming 20. Then Nigeria fall 22. Okay, that is for that. And when you come to yesterday, we have some kind of strong news emanating from Guinea. The president of Guinea, Alpha Conde, wants to run in for his third time in office. Alpha Conde, all know he was on several occasions detained by the former dictator who is now dead, Lassana Conte. But when he came in as a law professor, we are expecting him to change the atmosphere, the political atmosphere of Guinea, and at least they have democracy, but we are expecting good governance. Unfortunately, the man has chosen to swim with the old system. You want to manipulate the constitution, run for a referendum in order for him to guarantee him a third time. But the citizens of Guinea are against the act. They have decided to protest against him. 7 people lost their life, a lot of injury, and some of the opposition leaders are now politically detaining, waiting for their trial, and the people are still willing to go and protest on the street. The king of Morocco, that is part of North Africa, has actually decided to pardon a female journalist who was actually arrested, detained, and tried, also prosecuted for 3 years in prison, and they named that she had a child outside wedlock and she committed abortion. And the lady claimed that she had the right. But since Morocco is being run on Sharia law, but with a lot of human rights protests, Amnesty International, she and her husband has actually been granted pardon, and they have been asked to either leave the country or choose to stay. But it depends on how they are going to see the sanity into the country. Going down into East Africa, we have another musician that is emanating from Tanzania by the name of Abdul Razak. Abdul Razak is a musician who has been endorsed by the radical and a change Democrat into a dictator now by the name of John Magufuli, is the president of Tanzania. He came into power as a Democrat. At the end of the day, he changed everything. Now he wants to grow into power. But Abdul Razak have been very sympathetic with the government. Most of the songs that he sang are actually in favor of the John Magufuli government. So he wants to run for MP position, or that is member of parliament. The president of Tanzania, that is John Magufuli, who is a kind of political radical, has endorsed him. Unlike in Uganda, which is also part of East Africa, we have Bobby Wine, who has stood firmly against the dictator over there by the name of Yoweri Museveni, who is the president of Tanzania. But in this case, he has actually received the endorsement from the president. Then coming back into Kenya, Kenya has actually launched a railway station linking Mombasa and Garissa with the capital city, Nairobi. The railway station has been launched. The Chinese people sponsor it over $2.5 billion. But the opposition is crying down that railway station is not going to produce anything beneficial for the country because it has not been linked with any productive area of the city. But the president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, has seen to it that it is better to connect the people of the north and the south and other countries so that they can share the same wealth of the country. Then in Rwanda, the president of Rwanda, that is Paul Kagame, is actually involved in detaining the female politician over there. You know, women are easily intimidated when it comes to politics. He has accused the lady to be a sympathizer of one terrorist group that is operating close at DRC. And the last time we had some bomb blasts over there, about 12 people lost their life. He is trying to threaten her that she is responsible for those things. Human Rights International, other people are actually advocating for him to release the lady in question. But the lady is being intimidated, and the opposition are crying foul that she's a female. If she continues to be intimidated, she can easily pull out of the. Finally, in Nigeria, we have another sad news today coming from the north. That is in Kaduna State. Last week it was in Katsina State. Now it's in Kaduna State. They have some kind of Muslim cleric schools that they actually organize over there. But instead of them going on tutoring the children on the Islamic education, we have learned that they are enslaving them. Some of them we are discovered today, chained, tortured, and they were actually running as slaves. So it has been exposed to them. Most of the school authorities have been arrested, detained, and they're helping police with the investigation. So far, so good. These are some of the interesting stories emanating from this part of the world.
Wow, excellent job, Amara.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm in Africa. With all the news and all the updates. Thank you very much. Wonderful job.
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Very, very refreshing to hear back from the motherland. And I
Yes.
don't know, Liberia rank #1 in helping strangers.
That's a very good statistics. I think
So
we,
that's
That's
good
a very
news or
good
bad news because we are not helping ourselves.
well, but you see,
exactly.
Dennis,
We're not that-
the issue here is, there's different kinds of problems. And again, the issue in Liberia is that we have economic problem. We don't have a real social problem. Okay, we get along very well. We have a political and an economic problem, and we can make the social problem solve the economic or the political problem, and that's the hope. So we see somebody who is very popular, like George Weah. Yes, he may be able to solve the social problem, or let's say religious. You have countries where they think that a religious figure going to solve their social or the economic problem, and that's not the case. There's certain things you have to do to solve economic problems. So we have to separate
Mr. Jones,
what we have.
can I chip in before retiring to my bed? I think Liberia being rated as the most country into the world that is involved in helping strangers. To me, it has a relation, or it is a relative. Or let us take a common example. Sometimes poverty may make you to become a subservient or obedient too much. It is because we are actually committed in helping strangers. Watch at the financial status of Liberia and our earning power. Or just watch at how much does the Liberian earn per month, or even our GDP, the annual income of an individual into Liberia is very low. So most of those strangers who are coming, Liberians are into a beggarly position. So they may tend to go and to me, it's just out of hypocrisy. If we are well felt, we are independent, financially independent, you cannot just go and spend your entire time trying to please another stranger. You have to go and do all your own personal job. But it is because our low income financial status, and most of these people who come into Liberia, they may be a little bit better off than us. So we tend to show them more kindness whatsoever. At the end of the day, they will just give something to people.
Very
So
good
that
point.
is
Very good point. I can't add to that. Very, very, very good point.
Thank you. I'm retiring to bed. It is morning time here. Good night. Thank you. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from your financial analysis. I would have to just go and sleep on it, but it's a fantastic job. I admire your guest today. This is one of the programs that I most admire since I started attending your program. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amara, and be safe.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we will soon be closing the broadcast, but we want you to give you the opportunity to call. The number is being posted. We are discussing investment in Liberia. So, Alex, one of the reasons or one thing people always talk about is corruption. That you wanted me to invest in Liberia, the place is corrupt, or there's no transparency or rule of law and all those things. Those are challenges. What do you say to those?
No, they did not, because all my research have shown that there's no correlation, real economic correlation between countries that aren't corrupt and the development and countries that are corrupt. Because to quantify corruption, I mean, it's such a abstract thing. What do you mean by a country corrupt? Okay, let's just talk about public corruption. Okay, let's look at Nigeria. Nigeria, I think on most statistics, and the only indicator we have index that to measure corruption is the corruption index, right? Liberia is higher. That means less corrupt on the index than most of the other countries that are doing far economically better, that have banks. Why are people putting their money in Nigerian banks if Nigerians are so corrupt, involved in scam? So it has no academic research. A bank. Okay, let's go to another situation where, do you think why Meta still didn't go to Liberia to invest since Liberia was so corrupt? Why Firestone is not out of there? So it's just a elementary argument for people who don't have any real solution. So they will revert to, oh, the country is so corrupt. Every country in the world is corrupt. In fact, look at the Middle East. They're very corrupt. Okay, they just take money from the coffers. The difference is, in the Middle East, they have corporations, they have investment funds. So even when you're paying the princes and the kings and the whoever money, those corporations sustain the economy, and it's enough to pass around. You have institutions. So if you have institutions in Liberia, regardless of not if the government is corrupt, you have alternative. If I'm going to invest in real estate in Liberia through a corporation, I'm getting 10% return. I can care less. It's up to the corporation whether they want to bribe the government or not. Or I know I'm getting my 10% every year from that corporation, or I'm going to take my money and put it in another corporation. So there's been lots of articles about BP corruption and Chevron and all the American companies in Africa, Nigeria, Ghana. There's been studies on it. But
Are
do
they
the
closing
American,
shop?
I know, are they closing? Are they saying, well, I'm not going to invest in BP, or I'm not going to invest in, I mean, these are people who have come up on the record and admitted to bribe and pay fines, but they still making money. So nobody should make that argument. It's such a, what you call unintelligent question, argument to say that Liberia is so corrupt to the point that's why it's not doing well. There's no academic or what you call economic or financial sense. Indonesia is corrupt. India is corrupt. Okay, Russia is one of the most corrupt countries according to the index. Why is it so much more developed? So it's a stupid argument, Dennis. Don't let people give you that nonsense. We're not doing well because we don't have institutions. We don't have corporations. Everything we want to give other people to come to Liberia and build Liberia for us. We don't want to make money. That's the bottom line. We like to see other people do well. And then for us, we won't be jumping around this other person, this other politician, that other politician. We're not into the interest of saying, look, how much is it for me? I don't care who's president in Liberia. All I want to do is to earn money, and I don't have to earn it through the government. I can go to a Liberian company like Metal Steel, and I can buy shares in Metal Steel. Regardless of who is president, I will make money. I can go to Firestone and buy in Firestone, Lamco, all these companies. So we just need to build our own companies so that so other people are not making our money at our expense. That's basically what it is.
So William, you are head of a community.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from them? What is preventing them from investing in Liberia? Is it the knowledge, or because they don't have other people to cooperate and pool the resources together? What's the deal? What's preventing us?
Some of the reasons that you hear that kind of Alex kind of addressed very strongly is the idea that corruption is only in Liberia, and that and that there's some kind of a academic alignment with corruption and doing poorly economically. So there's that stigma in there that makes people a little bit leery of investing in Liberia. So that's definitely one thing right there. And the other one is, I think, being that you're a Liberian in the diaspora does not mean that you understand financials, does not mean that you understand finances, and does not mean that you are a business person. And so their experience with trying to do business back home is another reason why maybe that experience did not go well. And so because it did not go well, they kind of assign that or tie that onto everything else. So I think that that's another reason why. And then thirdly is, I think, option. I didn't know, or I don't see there's an option for me to invest in Liberia. I don't see that there's an option. If there's any, show me. If there's any, show me, So I think that those three things I see. One is the corruption idea. Two is that personal bad business experience by people who are not business people. And lastly, I think it's, I don't have any option. I didn't know I have an option, or there doesn't exist.
Yeah, sometimes the financial knowledge. Sometimes I told myself, I told people that I'm allergic to money, because growing up in Liberia, if you're a guy, you like money, they say you're going to steal. If you're a girl, you like money, they say you're going to be a prostitute.
Wow.
So there's this thing about money and how investment, and sometimes culture, sometimes religion, maybe all these things play a part. But with all these beautiful things that you guys have said, what next? How do we start?
I would let Alex kind of expand on it a little bit more in depth on how we start, because you know, I tend to outrace myself mentally sometimes. But one thing I will say is that we've been speaking, Alex
Can you
and
guys hear me?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, good. Yes.
is that we've been speaking, and we think that you know, now is the perfect time maybe to look at starting a advisory and management services entity that we can then look at a nonpartisan. And I want to be clear about this, that uh, I am, I guess the term will be agnostic, or to any political party that is there. I don't subscribe to that. And I just, where the rubber hits the road is that I want to see Liberians prosper.
Alex?
Yeah, basically,
Uh-oh.
well, is yeah, I have been
Your
opportunity to
audio,
speak
your
with
audio is
Mr.
bad.
King, and
The audio is bad, Alex.
trying to put some ideas together, and hopefully Mr. King will come back and be a regular. Can you hear me?
No, your audio is bad. When focus on Labrador Go
My
Public,
audible.
we can sell you some stocks so
Yeah.
you can improve the sound quality.
It's bad. Okay, okay. I think
Okay, so Alex, William, let's continue. Tomorrow we want to start this. We want to invest in Liberia. So
okay. Is it better now? You can hear me?
yeah, we can
Can you
hear
hear
you
me?
now.
Okay, good.
Okay, sorry
Good.
guys. I apologize. I had an emergency plumbing situation here, so if I apologize to the viewers that I had to be interrupted. But I've been speaking with Mr. King, and he's very intelligent and very financially savvy, and we've been, you know, talking about putting ideas together, and hopefully sooner rather than later. I hope you'll be a regular on the show, and we can put some because
No,
at the end, people who are destroying the. Before I go, I just wanted to. You
you're going bad again. You're going bad again. So
okay?
all right, let me go to you, William,
William? Okay.
as we conclude
You-
Yeah.
to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my final thoughts, Dennis. Um, we are in a good opportunity time for Liberians, because this is an opportunity for us as Liberians to seize the moment. And I think that we are passionate about Liberia, and that's the main thing that we have. And that's maybe at times that might be all we have right now, is the fact that we're passionate, because someone that doesn't know Liberia, doesn't care about Liberia, they just want to make money, they're not going to see the need. But we as Liberians, we have that. We care about it, and we send money back. So the time is kind of ripe for us to move forward with something. I think that for Alex and I, we've been talking and kind of formulating, and I think, you know, creating an advisory and management service is really in the space where we will begin to have these kind of dialogues, to take it a step further, to even engage our government, and also the Liberians in the diaspora in a meaningful way. And, you know, at the end of the day, just present a case where, hey, you know what? You have that passion. We want to use that passion and see if you're willing to give this a go, give this a try, and see how we can get Liberia to a place where the quality of life is greatly improved.
Thank you, Alex. Your final
Well, I
thoughts.
think we'll leave it there. I think instead I would just ask if you can come back on the show and hopefully be a regular, because we have a lot of educating to do, and I think we invite anybody who have ideas in finance, economic, business, call us, join us. We don't profess to know it all, but when later we know, we want to share with the people. So again, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have this discussion with you and all the things that you're doing. I'm sure we'll be working together. Okay.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you, gentlemen, so much for the time. Definitely, Mr. King, we want to have you back. We want to expound more on this about investment options, some of the words some of the things that you were said were flying over me, but I got it. Trust me, I got it.
Susu Club, next level.
Right. All I'm going with is we should be able to take Susu to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank our audience tonight. It's very important that financial literacy, most of these things is we don't know. Being in America doesn't qualify you to know everything, and we have different areas. This Friday, we're going to have on Miss Martha Washington, who is a former TRC commissioner, to come and talk about the TRC recommendations. That's going to be interesting. And Sunday, we're going to continue our series on African unity and African collaboration. We are even asking all those that are watching us, that are listening, if you have other financial topics or things that you want to get little or more understanding about, drop us a line, text me, call the number, or just inbox Focus on Liberia, so that we can talk about these things. It's very, very important. So again, I want to thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you so much.
Keep supporting Focus on Liberia.
Loving my people.
You see, Jenny had a surprise for us.
Yeah.
We start beating the drum.
The drum, I hear that.
There you go. We take them away back door. Oh man.
Wow. Thank God.
That's how we want to end it tonight, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Peace. All right.
God bless you, brother.